Hi YouTube, and yeah, finally got my hair up, but that's only because I went in the shower and I wanted to make another YouTube video, so it was still wet, so I just had to put it up, and now it's coming in curly. But lately, I have been so obsessed with paranormal stuff and evil spirits and Ouija boards and all that. Yeah, I have done one, but I kind of got freaked out, and I know my camera just keeps pausing, and it's really annoying, and I'm gonna ask for a new one, but I hope this works, and please subscribe.
Of all the spirits that have surfaced on Ouija boards during the last 20 years, there is one that continues to repeatedly identify itself. It announces its name as Zozo. Thousands of people have reported contact with this entity across the world. It appears to have demonic characteristics in the manners in which it communicates. Death threats and blasphemous exchanges are not uncommon with this little-known entity. Zozo have been known to predict violent death to those who ask it questions pertaining to future events. In some instances, the predictions have come true, according to paranormal researcher Darren Evans.
My best friend of 20 plus years asked Zozo how he would die when we were having some Ouija sessions in 2006. The plan should immediately spelled car wreck at night, all alone. Less than a year later, my friend crashed his SUV in the middle of the night. The authorities said he died on the scene, all alone. Another friend who was involved in some of the earlier sessions in the 1990s asked Zozo how he would die. It's spelled murder. A few years later, his death was ruled homicide. The case remains unsolved. I involved myself in hundreds of Ouija sessions, and it was usually Zozo that was the only spirit that I was able to contact. It took my board over no matter which board, whether it was homemade or which state I was in. I traveled a lot. I do believe that it resulted in a strange attachment that led to a nervous breakdown, severe panic episodes that put me in the hospital on several occasions, as well as finally resulted in some hallucinations that I had actually thought that demons were chasing me and following me in human form. I quit having Ouija sessions when Zozo told me it was going to devour my daughter's soul with an iron tongue. Days later, my daughter was hospitalized with a severe infection that required isolation for 2 weeks. Her tongue became so swollen that it hung from her mouth. And I realized after all of this that I was dealing with a sinister force, indeed a minister of deception.
Darren's research has opened a hornet's nest of controversy. In 2009, he started a blog site where he collected the stories of many other people who reported experiences with Zozo. His search for answers has led him to ancient religion, demonology, linguistic study, and esoteric mythology. He has received hundreds of emails from people who claim to have had strange encounters with the entity. The stories show similarities which could possibly shed some insight into this perplexing phenomenon.
In my own experiences, and in others I've researched, one thing that stands out is the incredible planchet intensity that Zozo surfaces. You can really tell that the movement is not that of the participant, but appears to be caused by an outside force. The planchet can get going so fast that it becomes very difficult to keep up with. The planchet can actually fly off the board and sometimes across the room with startling force. It will often proceed off the board towards other objects on the table and scoop them completely off the table as if to prove it's not playing around. It often tries to direct the conversation using sophisticated abbreviations, not unlike those used in modern chat rooms and text messaging. The planchet will move often in a very large figure-8 pattern and move in an arch path that I sometimes refer to as the rainbow effect from sea to O, back and forth very quickly and deliberately. Some of the people I've interviewed have made comments that they sensed it had an higher IQ than even they did, and would quickly spell out answers to questions they had no prior knowledge to.
Exactly what is this Zozo entity? How can it show up on so many Ouija boards across the world? An encyclopedia of demonology published in various editions in the 1800s known as the Dictionary of Infernal, written by Disclamier, mentions that a demon known as Zozo was one of the 3 entities that severely possessed a young girl in 1816. This was many years before the invention of the modern witch board. In the ancient Basque language, Zozo is defined as blackbird or crow. Could it be possible that Zozo was one of the prehistoric deities worshipped by indigenous cultures that practiced animal worship and animism? Has Zozo somehow wormed its way into the human collective subconscious and is resurfacing again in modern times? Skeptics dismiss the Zozo Ouija phenomena as being a natural response known as the ideomotor effect. But those who have heard of the phenomenon manifested merely because they have previous knowledge of the stories found on the internet.
In my opinion, the ideomotor effect is not an explanation for Ouija phenomena. One would expect that the ideomotorized movements of participants would conflict with each other and not to produce lengthy and meaningful messages. Now, I suppose there may be some sort of unifying force at work where all these movements are somehow resolved into a group effect, but this seems impossible to me as there's how can we explain how the ideomotor effect operates independently on, say, 3 or 4 people, and then it produces just one coherent thought or sentence? We would have to assume that they all had the same sentence in mind. Unconsciously, right at the beginning of the sentence or at the moment of the thought process. Either that or they adjusted their sentence independently as it unfolded. But it seemed like these sentences would trail off into nonsense if that were the case. Now, if 3 or 4 people acting independently deliberately try to cheat and create sentences on purpose, nothing but havoc and gibberish is the result. Now, I'm not arguing that science is nonsense, of course, but rather that scientists are sometimes biased or unprofessionally quick to ignore anomalies, which cast doubt on their own scientific paradigms. I also think that it's relatively easy to catch someone cheating or trying to manipulate the centerpiece, as it does require that the participants are able to manipulate the glass if they are cheating. Once you have experiences with Ouija sessions, it's pretty obvious if someone is applying the pressure or moving it independently. And even if you do it inadvertently, the other person will spot it.
Regardless if the Zozo Ouija phenomenon falls under the skeptical hypothesis of scientific ideomotorized action, or the manifestation of a malevolent spirit entity, or perhaps a legion of demons, in Mayaism with negative agendas, one thing is certain. Ouija users from many continents are reporting paranormal activity in association with the Zozo phenomenon. The widespread occurrences of these circumstances has prompted debate on radio broadcasts, books, magazine articles, and recently prompted An independent film company to depict a motion picture based on the true events surrounding the controversy. If you had encountered Zozo on a Ouija board, it is strongly recommended that you immediately close the session and refrain from further communication with the entity. In part 2 of this documentary, we will review some of the stories that have been sent to Mr. Evans and look into other possibilities and theories which may give us a better understanding of what is known as the Zozo Ouija phenomenon.
So they have it, Zozo is the evilest spirit you can get on a Ouija board. I do not own that video, okay? And that video was by guaranteed, okay? So I did not own anything of that. But I just wanted to show the video to you guys, okay? And please subscribe.